to be gay. Sing if you're happy that way. Hey, sing if you're glad to be gay. Sing if you're happy that way. Don't try to kid us that if you're discreet, you're perfectly safe as you walk down the street.
Hello, I'm Keith Howes and I was the features editor of London's Gay News from 1976 until 1979. So who were the homosexuals that worked for Gay News? Well, you'll see some of them in the photograph that was taken, I think, in 1978. It's a nice photograph. It was taken by Bob Workman, who of course is sitting in the front row as well as being behind the camera. Oh, the magic of technology in the 1970s. It was wonderful. Now, I'm going to tell you something I've never told anybody before. I was actually very much in love with one of the people in that photograph. I'm not going to tell you who it was, but all I will say, it wasn't Daisy the dog. I must tell you about Daisy. She was the Gay News guard dog, and her kennel name was Gay News. And she was the property, the child, shall we say, of Maggie Donovan, who's holding her in the picture. Maggie was the office manager, and she was the only straight person in that photograph, I think. She was pretty much heterosexual. She had had a couple of affairs, one with one of the people that had worked there in the past. There were some affairs going on, and as I said, I fell head over heels in love with one of the people in the photograph, who I may say is still a very good friend of mine, but I prefer not to say who he or she is. So who were the people? Well, there was me. There was Keith Howes. I was 28 years old at the time, and I, of course, never worked for a gay publication before because there really weren't many gay publications to work for. And Gay News was really the Harvard of gay publications, at least as far as I was concerned. It had intelligent writing, it was wide-ranging, it had literary pages, cookery, opera reviews, television, radio, film. It had excellent correspondents like Colin McInnes. It had interviews with Angus Wilson and Christopher Isherwood and all those heavyweights. And I just thought, yeah, I'd really like to work for it. Actually, I read a diary the other day, and I realised that wasn't the reason I went to work for Gay News. It was because I was actually having a relationship at that time with someone who was in the gay liberation movement, and I thought it would impress him if I went to work for Gay News. So that's my confession. 2 confessions in one little interview. So I went to work for it. I had no idea what I was going to do for the paper. I couldn't really see that someone coming from a national women's magazine would be much use on a gay paper, but they seemed to think that I was the person. Dennis Lemon was the editor. Dennis was not a trained journalist. He had worked in a variety of jobs, and he was part of the collective that set up Gay News in 1972. But the collective soon became a one-man band, i.e. Dennis Lemon. Dennis Lemon did not brook much opposition. He was very much the commander-in-chief. He believed that the paper should be run professionally, efficiently, and intelligently. He did not want it to be one of those fly-by-night hippie publications that were like mushrooms in the field. You know, they were there one day and then gone the next. So he ran it like a galley ship. I remember once I wasn't even allowed to take time off to go to a dentist appointment. I had to work all the time. I think only a funeral would have been acceptable for Dennis to let me off. I used to work something like, well, definitely 5 days a week. That's full days and often evenings. When I did Gay Britain, I used to work on the weekends, and we had 2 weeks holiday off in the summer and 2 weeks holiday off in the winter. And I remember coming home often on a night and just bursting into tears, not because I was sad about working for Gay News. Goodness knows it was probably the best job I ever had. But I was just exhausted, so tired after working those 12 or 16-hour days. But Dennis, of course, worked just as hard, but Dennis worked in a different way. He worked during the day at the magazine and the newspaper, But during the night, he was, shall we say, doing some field research in the art of being gay. He would often be seen at gay clubs, gay pubs, and, shall we say, with a variety of gentlemen. He was a very enthusiastic gay person, or should I say bisexual, because he did, as he said, have a perverse side. So I don't quite know how that was worked out in Gay News, but Dennis was, shall we say, a very enthusiastic sexual athlete. Dennis was a joy to work with. The reason being, he respected the writer. He respected the journalist. He would ask always, even if he was changing a single comma or full stop in a journalist's work. He was scrupulous, absolutely scrupulous in the way he treated us. We were always paid on time. We didn't get very much money, but he always made sure that the check was ready for us the Tuesday after the paper was published on the Thursday. An excellent, excellent boss, but my God, a hard taskmaster. Next up is Michael Mason. He was the news editor. He worked with me. Only one drawback with Michael, darling, chain smoker. And we were in a tiny office, a bit the size of a walk-in larder, and Michael was smoking all the time, as was Dennis. Next came Alison Hennigan. She was my assistant features editor, and she became the literary editor as well. And she came from Cambridge, and she insisted on living in Cambridge for part of the week. So she only worked up in London for about 3 or 4 days. She also worked for the national counselling organisation, Friend. So she would often get rung by people in distress and in trouble. She would always put down whatever she was doing to answer. I regard Alison as an example of grace under fire. And talking of Grace, Jeff Grace was Michael's assistant, a absolute little fiend, terrier, devil. We had quite a few little fights, but he was adorable and he died far too young. So that was the newsroom. And downstairs we had the mail order service, we had the book service because we used to sell a lot of gay books, and we had the advertising man. Advertising men were very important to Gay News because without them there would be no paper. And advertising came obviously from the gay clubs. It also came from record companies, theatre companies, film companies, sometimes cosmetics, but we could never break through into the straight advertising market. We were still very limited to arts. We never got breakfast cereals. We never got Coca-Cola. We never got any of those things. We were strictly taboo as far as the main advertisers were concerned. I talked about Daisy, the little dog. She was there all the time, and of course she would fight off any marauders that came to Gay News. We had bars on the window at Gay News. It was in Greyhound Road, West Kensington, because there had been some trouble in the past. We always got obscene callers, homophobic calls. I remember I was there one Saturday and this boy kept ringing me up and abusing me. And I looked at my watch and it was about 12:10 in the morning. And I thought, he'll be having his lunch fairly soon, so he won't be phoning. So there was a bit of a break. And then he phoned again. I said, did you enjoy your lunch? Oh, yes, I did. And as soon as he said that, the spell was broken and I became a human being. So, of course, he never really rang again. But Gay News, yes, we had to tough out some difficult times. The blasphemy case, nobody left during that very, very difficult time. We all stuck together. We were family. It was a very unusual family. It was a mixed family. I remember Alison saying, of course, the toilet was minute and there were 25 people eventually working for it, and you had to be very quick in the toilet because people were always waiting. But it was very difficult if you were crying because the toilet was the only place where you could go to cry, and we did cry a lot. Why did we cry at Gay News? Exhaustion, pressure. There was so much anti-gay pressure going on in Britain in the 1970s, both from the National Front, from government, and then we had Thatcher coming in at the end of the 70s. And of course the newsroom was bringing in all these terrible reports of people being bashed, lesbians losing custody of their children, libraries not stocking gay news, libraries banning gay books, gay films being banned. It was very, very difficult. But also, there was, of course, the usual pressures of working with other people. And there was a sense that the people upstairs, of which I was a part, were the posh people, the intellectuals, the people that did all the fun jobs. We all went to the openings and the premieres, and we interviewed all the celebrities. And the people downstairs, they saw themselves really just as the drudges. But we didn't see it like that at all. We thought that they were just doing the most fantastic job. I must mention Sandy Rose. She did the personal account. She was mad on motorbikes and scooters, and she was our baby butch lesbian, because there weren't many lesbians on the paper. It was supposed to be for lesbians, but it was mainly gay men, and this, of course, did not escape the notice of many lesbians. That Gay News was run by, excuse the language, penis power. Yes, all the men had penises, and some of them used them, I can tell you. Not that I ever got any of it. I was the prude. I basically was the prude on Gay News. I didn't go cruising. I didn't go to Hampstead Heath. I didn't go to the toilets. I didn't go to the Boltons or the Coleherne or any of those things. I wrote about those things. I was a voyeur because I am a camera.